How's it going? It's Paul with PM Designs, and this is going to be Photo Talk episode number 2. And in this, we're going to be talking about budget, and not so much talking about your budget and stuff, and how to save up money and do all this, but more or less how to make better use of the money and resources that you have, and how to really, instead of getting that gear envy and wanting to buy more and more gear and spend money and spend money and spend money on stuff that you think you need, but using what you have and getting a photo that you like. And a lot of that comes down to realizing that you don't need the $2,000 camera and the $5,000 lens. In some cases, when you're doing really high-end professional work, you're gonna need to spend the money. But for just amateur stuff, you can get away with just doing some simple things. Stepping back and zooming in to get a shallower depth of field, and this will work a lot of times with your standard kit lenses and stuff. And the easiest way is just to get your gear and just use it and practice with it. Now, in some of the other cameras, in some of the newer point and shoot cameras, and I say newer because I'm not really sure on how far back cameras go, but in some of your cameras, nowadays you can mess with the camera at the store, especially if you go to an actual brick and mortar store, or you can read different reviews and stuff and look on YouTube. It's a great, really great place to find information and stuff. But some of them will have different creative modes that'll help you achieve the look of the shot you're going for, as well as you can use different photo editing programs and achieve those effects that you're looking for. And instead of, when you're not able to get that image in camera due to not having your camera just not being able to do that, like on the SX500 that I have, there's stuff on there, little creative things that I can do in camera on there, that if I wanted to do the same thing with my DSLR, I would need to do that in Photoshop after I'm done capturing the image. So and then another thing is with your camera, or sometimes with the camera manufacturer, they may have a download available online, is some of them will have free photo editing software, where it's I think the other day I heard someone had called it Lightroom Lite, just a simplified version of Lightroom, where you can do some of the editing and stuff and do some of the adjustments, and crop the image, adjust the get everything going vertical and stuff. You can adjust the angle of the photo and different things. But one key factor is no matter what, you need to work on getting a nice sharp image. There's no software or no way that you can, if you miss the focus point and you don't have a tack sharp image, editing's not going to fix that. So that's one thing that goes back with the your gear. All the way from the cheapest camera to the most expensive camera, you need to get your focus where dead on. And so talking about that, with that kind of transitions into the next little thing I wanted to talk about, is going with the budget topic, is using the little creative filters that'll attach onto your camera. On my DSLR, there's not on my DSLR, on the little point and shoot SX500 that I have, there's some creative things that you can do on there. And they have the wide angle, the fisheye look, and stuff like that. And if I wanted to do it on my DSLR, get that fisheye look, I'm gonna need either a fisheye lens, or I'm gonna need some kind of fisheye filter that's going to thread onto the front of my lens to give me that fisheye effect that I want. So but with those, sometimes they can cause focus issues, or not so much focus issues, but they'll just cause the image to be soft and not be tack sharp. And sometimes you can correct this in post processing and stuff, but there are times when it's not going to make the image look good. It's just going to end up being an image that's really soft. And I mean, if that's what you're looking for kind of a nice, dreamy kind of look. Sometimes that softness can go to your advantage. And just like on one of my images I took a while back using some macro filters before I had the extension tube, is it kind of, I took some pictures of a flower, and it kind of gave it a nice appearance. It was, kind of soft, and just gave it a nice look. Whereas I feel if that image would have been, really crisp edges, it just wouldn't have looked, it would have made the image look not as nice. That of course is my opinion, and everybody's entitled to their own. So and then also with talking about soft images and stuff like that, and getting that look, the point should have, it has the ability to do, I think, a toy camera effect, which gives you that the weird kind of colorations, and the focus and the contrast, just kind of weird. But on my DSLR, I bought some $25 Holga lenses, which are little plastic lenses, no electronics, no nothing, just really simple. The kind of has, I guess, the focus thing. It gives you like one person, 3 people, and mountains, and you kind of have to look through there and try to get the focus as sharp as you can. And there's of course with that, there's some little DIY things that you can do to make the aperture a little bigger, so you can get it does different things. But it's just it's $25. It was something fun and creative and stuff, and a lot of times it'll create, like I've heard a lot of people say, is it'll create an image that you can't really replicate in Photoshop easily. You can just get it in camera and just you can have fun and just do different creative things. Now, with that in mind, when you do go that route, you also have the fact that you're never going to have a sharp image. What you have, if it's soft, that's what you're going to have. Whereas if you try to do it in post-processing and everything, and in Photoshop, Lightroom, whatever the Canon's, trying to look on my computer, Digital Photo Professional, that there are, if you start off with a soft image, you're not going to be able to pull it back. And so a lot of times I'll try to take a nice sharp image in camera, and then use those editing programs to get the image to look the way I want. Now sometimes I'll put that $25 lens on and just go have fun with it and just take different pictures and just but I have yet to really capture anything that I'm like, oh wow, this is amazing, I really like it. But then again, I do like my images to be nice and sharp, so that could have something to do with it. And so another thing is looking at doing DIY projects. That's something I try to do every now and then. Mainly, I'll look at something that I want, and whether it be some kind of camera mount. I was looking for a while there. I was looking for a little handle for my GoPro, and instead of going out and buying the little different poles or little handles that are like $10-$20, from Amazon and stuff, and then shipping, I started looking at doing something DIY with PVC and a couple screws, and I was able to make a couple different mounting projects for my camera for $20 or so. And I don't even think it was that much, but that the factor of that is that you need to have the tools and some of the knowledge to be able to put that together. Otherwise, you're gonna end up having, if you have to go out and you have to go buy a drill. Now, if you have to buy tools, you're always gonna have those tools, so you can use them for future projects. But you have to figure, is it worth going out and buying these tools and stuff? Now, you can borrow tools from friends and stuff, and you can ask friends to help you if you don't have the knowledge of using the tools and stuff like that. Or if you have people that know how to put these things together, that can help you out and save you time, and they may be able to put in their little bit of insight, and you'll come out with a product that works really well and didn't really cost you all that much. So I like the whole DIY thing. And on most things, if you have the tools and you have the knowledge, or you have the resources where you can go to somebody and get their help and you borrow their tools, and their time. You can make stuff that will get the job done. And then the other option is looking at, knockoff versions, and a lot of times you kind of, it's one of those buyer beware kind of deals where you can sometimes find, nicely built quality products that cost, a third or a fourth of the price, and it'll do what you need it to do. But then there's other times where you'll go buy that knockoff version and it'll probably last you one or two times, and then it'll just fall apart and you'll have to replace that. And or go and try to fix things and make things better, replace some of the pieces, and then end up having to reverse engineer it and make it into something that'll work properly. And I have ran into that. I've bought my ring light. It had an issue where it wouldn't really turn freely on its mount. So I went in there and I had to take some little precision files and file down some extra plastic that was in there to allow it to turn, instead of it just turning itself and basically unscrewing it off the front of the lens. So but that's one of those things where it wasn't really anything major, and it took me about 5 minutes of my time. And for the fact of what that that ring light cost versus going by the Canon brand one or a Nikon brand one, if you're on the Nikon platform, while you don't get the full control of it, it does what I need it to do, and that's what counts. You don't need, if what you're buying, if you can get away with spending less money and getting it to do what you want to do. Now, of course, later on when you start getting into that skill of knowing how to set things and getting to that level, spend the money on the high end gear and stuff. But when you're starting out and when it's really just a hobby, don't go get into debt to go buy all kind of gear and stuff like that. But if it's something you do professionally, you need reliable gear. You need multiple bodies. You need the gear to get the job done. And but when you learn, when you first starting out, and really along the whole road of doing photography and videography, you really need to work on your skill, and going to the different forums and watching how-to videos, reading a book, watching somebody's training video. Doing that will help you to develop the skills, and that'll you'll learn how to do everything and make the gear that you have do what you want it to do, versus go and spend money on gear because people say, oh, it'll do this and it'll do that and it'll do this. But you can achieve that same or close to that same goal without spending that money and using gear that you already have to its full potential. And so that's really my whole thing, is just looking up and learning how to do what you want, and really just taking what you have and just using it. Practice and practice and practice. When you have a few minutes, take your camera out the bag and take some photos around. If it's raining outside and there's nothing on TV, take out your camera and take some pictures of some spice bottles, or grab the Christmas tree ornaments and set them out on the table and take different pictures of them and see how to do different things. And you can learn a lot from just experimenting, even though the images that you're capturing really aren't going to have any use or any because it's really just taking pictures of stuff that's sitting around the house, or but it'll help you to learn those skills, and then you'll be a lot more relaxed, because it's not like, okay, I need this picture of whatever it is to look perfect. I need this to show to so and so, or this picture's for this person or for whatever. It's just you're having fun, taking pictures of different things that you have around the room. And a lot of, I've even seen on a couple of videos where people go out there and they'll be like, all right, I'm gonna take pictures of things that are circles. You go around your house and take pictures of things that are circles or squares or triangles, or take pictures of things that are blue or purple. You can do different things, and then that'll give you a subject to capture. And like I'm looking in my kitchen right now where I'm recording, and if I wanted to go with circles, I've got the knobs on the cabinets, I've got some plates hanging on the wall, I've got a flashlight, I have a bunch of different things. There's some shot glasses, so there's a lot of different stuff, bowls that you can just take a picture of, and you can try out different things. And at the end of the day, or at the end of those 5 minutes, 10 minutes, how much ever time you'd spend, you can go back and look at the images and say, okay, well, how did I try to light this one? You can try if you have different lights in whatever room you're in, try different lights. Take a flashlight, light something with a flashlight. Try different things and see how different lighting affects. Maybe you get some cool little lens flare and stuff, and you can figure out different little techniques, and get an image that you're happy with. And you can really be creative and just have fun, and instead of just spending money on gear and trying to buy more gear, so that way when you go out there, because if you don't know how to use the gear, you're never going to get that image that you want. You're never going to get something that's going to look great. You need to take your gear, take what you have, take it out the bag, and just start using it. If you have a flash and a tripod and a cord to put the flash, or a radio trigger or something, it doesn't even have to be expensive ones. You can buy some little cheap ones, buy a cheap manual flash, and just set up something, and just experiment with it. Experiment with the different modes on your camera. If you don't feel like shooting, full manual mode, you can shoot in auto, shoot in program mode. Learn the settings of your camera. Learn the what ISO controls. Learn what different shutter speeds gonna make, aperture. Learn all these different things. Learn how to set your white balance on the camera yourself. Learn. Put your camera in RAW mode, and where you have to bring the photo into your photo editing software and change it to a JPEG file, but that'll give you more control over white balance and stuff after you take the image, after you take the photo. So there's a lot of things that you can do with the gear you already have, and like I said, there's some free photo editing software out there that you can use and play with before you go spend hundreds of dollars to buy these professional photo editing programs. But there's online. You can go download. You can go to websites that you can upload your photo. Tell it, and it'll do, it'll do. Just you'll put an image and adjust how much of the effect you want, and it'll spit out the image that you want. And that'll work a lot better than especially if it's just a couple images that you want to make. It'll save you that money, and you can spend the money on other stuff. So go out there, take what you have and use it, and learn to use it. Find a photo club, find a forum, go get with other people, and pick up on their knowledge and stuff. And don't ever think that just because you're learning from one person, learn from multiple people, and take all of their knowledge and methods and techniques, and blend it all together and come up with your style. Because at the end, you'll have your skill set. You'll be able to take amazing images that look really nice, and you'll start, even like I said, you're starting off with basic gear. When you work up and you have that solid foundation of skill, when you get the nice cameras and you get the nice equipment, it'll look that much better, because you'll already know how to properly do what you want and get that video or that image or whatever, because your skill is honed and you have the proper skill, and now that you have the proper gear to make full use, it'll just all come together and work perfectly. So I know I kind of got off track a couple times in this video, or in this podcast, whatever you really want to call it. But thank you for listening, and I'm gonna start working on getting ideas together for the next week's video. So thanks for watching. If you have any ideas for future topics, post it in the comments section. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.